Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin has been negotiating with Speaker Nancy Pelosi on the multi-billion-dollar aid package. Patrick Semansky, AP photo.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin are moving swiftly to try to reach a deal on a massive emergency aid package for Americans affected by the coronavirus, negotiating in dramatic fashion as Congress prepares to depart for a week-long recess amid an intensifying national crisis.
Republicans in the White House and on Capitol Hill have raised major objections to the Democrats' multi-billion-dollar emergency proposal, which was unveiled close to midnight on Wednesday. But Pelosi told reporters that Democrats have agreed to most of the GOP's proposed changes and reiterated that the House would still power ahead with a vote on Thursday.
"We are responding to their concerns, we don't want them moving the goalposts and that's it," Pelosi said at her weekly press conference.
Senior House Democrats left an hour-long leadership meeting on Thursday confident that a deal with the White House and GOP congressional leaders was within reach. Pelosi stepped out of the meeting at one point to take a call from Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, who is leading the negotiations for the White House. It was their fourth conversation of the day, Pelosi aides said.
Pelosi spoke to Mnuchin for a fifth time shortly before 4 p.m., and when House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer left the Speaker's office roughly an hour later, he sounded more pessimistic about the prospects of a deal.
"I think it's possible tonight. If we can't get it done tonight, we'll get it done tomorrow," Hoyer said. "I think everybody feels a sense of urgency."
The number 2 House Democrat confirmed that the chamber would return from its recess next week if the Senate took up a competing proposal and ignored the House version.
Amid the 9 hours of negotiations, members and aides have grown frustrated, with few answers about when the House will vote. Both chambers are still expected to adjourn on Thursday.
The outstanding issues remaining include a Medicaid cost-sharing provision, as well as whether to grant permanent or temporary liability waivers to mask manufacturers, according to sources in both parties.
But some progressive Democrats are concerned about concessions made by party leaders on paid sick leave. Representative Rosa DeLauro, D-Con, a vocal advocate on the issue, has continued to push for a provision that would allow permanent paid sick leave, despite objections from Republicans who want only temporary benefits.
DeLauro told Representative Barbara Lee, D. Califf, "Let's not say anything until we see exact text," walking out of the leadership meeting.
Asked if Democrats would need to drop their push for a permanent sick leave provision amid GOP resistance, DeLauro sought to downplay the controversy.
"This is all focused on coronavirus. This is what the emergency is," DeLauro said. "Progress is being made, expect a vote today. We're trying to button it all up." Still, even some of DeLauro's Democratic colleagues have lost patience, with several privately complaining that her refusal to relent is a key obstacle to a bipartisan deal.
Even as Pelosi and Mnuchin continued their talks on the House bill, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell declared the chamber would cancel next week's recess to continue work on dealing with the outbreak.
Notwithstanding the scheduled state work period, the Senate will be in session next week, the GOP leader tweeted. "I am glad talks are ongoing between the administration and Speaker Pelosi. I hope Congress can pass bipartisan legislation to continue combating the coronavirus and keep our economy strong."
Pelosi, meanwhile, has sought to project confidence in a quick agreement as she remains in close contact with Mnuchin. The California Democrat described many of the White House's requested changes as reasonable. But she shot down House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy's suggestion that lawmakers continue negotiations for 24 or 48 hours, to get a bipartisan deal.
"We don't need 48 hours, we need to just make a decision to help families right now," Pelosi said. "I'm not sticking around because they don't want to agree to language."
Senior Democrats had initially been hopeful, some even confident, that their bill would win support from Republicans. By Thursday morning, however, GOP leaders said they would oppose the plan over the paid leave plan and changes to Medicaid, which would help hospitals cover swelling costs of uninsured patients.
President Donald Trump said Thursday that he did not support the measure, even as his Treasury chief took part in multiple conversations with Pelosi to discuss changes to the bill.
"No, there are things in there that had nothing to do with what we are talking about. It is not a way for them to get some of the goodies they have been able to get for the last 25 years, Trump said, without offering specifics.
The Democrats' package would shore up safety net programs like food assistance, unemployment insurance and temporary sick leave with growing numbers of people forced to stay home from work and schools. It would also make free coronavirus testing widely available in a bid to address one of the nation's major struggles in containing the outbreak.
The divisions on the package have fueled turmoil over the U.S. response to the outbreak as it quickly consumes the nation. With the stock market cratering, lawmakers are increasingly nervous about leaving Washington on Thursday without passing some kind of relief package.
Pelosi has spoken repeatedly with Mnuchin, hoping that if she can win White House support, House Republicans would be forced to drop their resistance. Either way, Pelosi said, the bill would be coming to the floor Thursday.
We're bringing the bill to the floor, Pelosi told reporters Thursday morning, declining to comment on whether the White House had expressed an opinion on the Democratic measure. She called the question premature, but added that she thought the White House had gotten ample time to consider the proposals in the package.
Representative Debbie Dingell, D. Mich, said the House shouldn't leave town without passing a bill and should consider returning to Washington if there's a path to a deal with the Senate.
We'll see what the Senate does, and if we've got to come back, we've got to come back, Dingell said, adding, we have to make sure that this country has the resources that we need to deal with this.
But many lawmakers are also anxious to be away from Capitol for an extended period of time, perhaps for even longer than the currently scheduled week-long recess. Both the House and Senate were expected to return March 23, though those plans could change.
McCarthy told Republican lawmakers on a conference call Thursday morning that the GOP is going to oppose the Democratic coronavirus bill as currently constructed, according to sources on the call. At a press briefing shortly after, McCarthy said both chambers should remain in session until a bill can be negotiated, repeatedly emphasizing that they want to work with Pelosi.
I think we stay here, we get it right, McCarthy told reporters. I think we can get this done in the next 48 hours.
Pelosi shot back at her own press conference, we don't need 48 hours.
Republicans have specifically taken issue with language in the bill that requires paid sick leave for all businesses with no exemptions or end date, puts the Social Security Administration in charge of the paid emergency leave program and increases Medicaid's federal medical assistance percentage.
Some of the changes that the GOP has floated, according to McCarthy, include adding employee retention credits, making public health emergencies eligible for disaster aid and ensuring more masks are available for health providers.
Senior Democrats have expressed interest in tax provisions such as retention credits, which would encourage businesses to keep workers on their payroll even during an economic slump. But many Democrats have signaled those kinds of tax relief provisions would require more time, and potentially congressional hearings, before a package could be drafted.
McConnell called the House measure an ideological wish list.
The Kentucky Republican insisted the Senate was willing to consider a compromise package if it can be negotiated by Democrats and the White House, but said left-wing political messaging may have taken priority over the needs of our country.
Instead of focusing on immediate relief to affected individuals, families and businesses, the House Democrats chose to wander into various areas of policy that are barely related if at all to the issue before us, McConnell said on the Senate floor.
Trump outlined his own proposals in a primetime Oval Office address on Wednesday night, which included paid sick leave, small business loans and delaying tax payment deadlines. Democrats say they plan to address any tax-specific measures in a later package, focusing instead on low-income families and vulnerable populations.
The negotiations come at a dramatic moment on Capitol Hill, with senior Democrats and Republicans acknowledging that they had never before seen such a crisis, with no way of knowing the eventual scale in the U.S.
The uncertainty has been compounded by rising frustration among members of both parties about their inability to get clear answers from the Trump administration about the government's capacity to test individuals for the virus.
Conservative Representative Mark Walker, RNC, said Trump administration officials left a lot of questions that are still not being able to be answered after a Thursday morning briefing. There's frustration among members as a whole, he said, particularly about why the United States can't replicate successful testing regimes implemented elsewhere.
I believe the CDC struggled to give a really strong answer on being able to duplicate some of the places like South Korea, he said.
The Capitol is also grappling with its first case of the coronavirus in its complex. An aide to Senator Maria Cantwell, D. Wash, has tested positive for the virus, and multiple congressional offices are now working remotely.
The response on Capitol Hill has been escalating rapidly in the past 24 hours, with party leaders and building security officials deciding to clamp down on public tours.
The sweeping package, crafted in about 72 hours by a handful of Democratic chairmen, took even some Democrats by surprise.
Representative Ed Perlmutter, D-Call, told Democratic chairman at a middle-of-the-night meeting of the House Rules Committee that he didn't understand why the vote couldn't be slowed down slightly for all members to digest the package.
This is about as far from regular order as Congress gets, Perlmutter said early Thursday morning, challenging House Energy and Commerce Chairman Frank Pallone.
Kyle Cheney, Marianne Levine and Jake Sherman contributed to this report.